Xi Jinping is singing the correct view of political achievement. Do you fear a time when people are asked to eat politics instead of food? Here is Jersey's news commentary channel. Recently, a new fairy tale of the new era coming out of Henan has cast the entire Chinese officialdom in an absurd light. A locality whose actual attracted investment was only 100 million yuan somehow, after being reported layer by layer up the bureaucracy, magically turned into 7.8 billion yuan. The number expanded 78 times over. This is no longer ordinary data inflation, it is the naked transformation of statistics into mythology. It instantly flashes our memory back to 1958, when Henan and other places in Mao's era were launching sputnik-style miracles of grain yields of 10,000 jin per mu, the absurd script that once occupied the front-page headline of the People's Daily. Today, it seems that same script is being staged once again. But what is even more intriguing is this: after the scandal was exposed, the People's Daily, Itsai, and many major state media outlets across the country moved almost in sync, loudly condemning local data fraud, obsession with political achievements, and formalism. For a time, public opinion formed into a quasi-campaign-style wave, as if a new round of political rectification had just begun. Many local officials were suddenly stunned. Because they know better than anyone that this kind of numbers game was never the invention of one county or one city. It has been passed down for many years throughout the entire system, a result of long-term tacit approval, incentives at every level, and collusion from top to bottom. Now, being suddenly dragged out and used as a sacrificial flag, many were left utterly bewildered. How was it that just yesterday everyone was being encouraged to fight for the economy and compete on growth rates, yet today it has suddenly become a wrong view of political achievement? This is precisely the most absurd scene in Chinese politics today. On one side, the entire country loudly condemns local falsification. On the other, systemic falsification from top to bottom has already reached its peak. As a result, China's reality has split into two parallel worlds. In the first world, grassroots officials are turned into negative examples, portrayed as impatient for quick success and obsessed with performance theater, as if all problems originated simply because lower levels had gone astray and misunderstood the leader's guidance and the spirit of the center. In the second world, national statistics, customs data, the central bank's exchange rate narratives, financial markets, stock index lifting, stories of prosperous consumption, slogans of stable employment, and the grand narrative that the economy is steadily improving all continue to march triumphantly forward, sustaining an even larger illusion of numerical falsehood. In other words, falsification below is called an unhealthy trend. Falsification above is called stabilizing expectations. If a county reports higher numbers, it is called a problem of political achievement metrics. If the nation reports higher numbers, it is called leading confidence. I believe many state media outlets rushing forward with the tide may not truly understand what medicine Xi Jinping is really selling from his gourd. They are merely moving with the wind. Once they sense the political direction has shifted, they instantly fall into rhythm. This is the instinctive adaptive syndrome of CCP state media. But the People's Daily is different. I believe it certainly understands. Because it has never been a simple news organization. It is the barometer and thermometer of the entire political line. What it does best is not to tell you the truth, but to first saturate the entire nation with emotion, tone, and political atmosphere. Only after everyone has been swept into it does it slowly place the real motive before your eyes. This time, the high-profile promotion of the correct view of political achievement is not fundamentally about seeking truth from facts, not about restoring economic rationality, and certainly not about truly tracing the roots of systemic data falsification. What it is really doing is this: after the economy's continued deceleration and the collapse of the growth myth, it is resetting an entirely new logic of behavior for the whole bureaucratic system. From now on, development will no longer serve as the highest source of legitimacy. Instead, political security, risk control, and absolute obedience will become the new standards of achievement. To put it plainly, the old path of the economy in command no longer works. The entire country is being guided back toward Mao-era politics in command. For the past several decades, Deng Xiaoping's phrase, "development is the hard truth," once gave this country the simplest and clearest direction. Why was that sentence so powerful back then? Because it answered the people's most basic logic of survival: having food to eat, having work to do, having money to earn, letting children go to school, and seeing life improve day by day. As Deng said, only then will people truly accept you. That is what hard truth really means. But today, Xi Jinping's loud singing of the correct view of political achievement appears on the surface to be correcting local disorder, while in reality it is quietly completing a deeper political line shift. Let officials treat political security as achievement. Let society treat political correctness as order. And finally, let the people treat politics as food. But the question is, can politics be eaten as food? Can slogans replace wages? Can loyalty cover unemployment? Can a correct view of political achievement fill the stomachs of an ordinary family? Henan's transformation of 100 million into 7.8 billion is certainly absurd. But what is truly frightening is not the number itself, but the political signal it releases when economic reality can no longer sustain the legitimacy of rule. Power begins to redefine reality through political discourse. You can say growth no longer matters. You can say data no longer matters. You can say GDP is no longer the only standard. You can even say formalism must be rectified. But in the hearts of ordinary people, there remains only the most basic question: do I have a job? Is my house still worth anything? Can my child find a future after graduation? Is my life becoming harder year after year? No correct view of political achievement can bypass these questions. No matter how beautifully it is packaged, no matter how grand and righteous it sounds, in my view this high-profile propaganda campaign will ultimately still collapse. Because no matter how lofty the political vocabulary, how magnificent the long-term blueprint, or how伟大的 the historic mission, none of it can defeat the single bowl of rice on an ordinary person's dining table. Economic laws do not disappear because of propaganda. Anxiety over livelihood does not evaporate because of slogans. Yes, you can let the people's daily build the atmosphere first. You can let state media across the nation create a wave. You can make local officials relearn what the center designates as correct. But if ordinary people eventually discover that this so-called new political achievement standard is nothing more than forcing them to continue swallowing political rhetoric amid increasingly difficult realities, then sooner or later this narrative will crash into the hardest wall of all. Survival itself is the greatest politics. Even if you were the reincarnation of God, you still could not twist against the people's rigid demand for survival. Was not Mao Zedong's once deafening doctrine of politics in command eventually thrown mercilessly into the toilet by the people as well? I will use one sentence to summarize today's absurd drama. When an era begins demanding that people eat politics instead of food, it signals that China may once again be opening the curtain on another catastrophe in which millions starve to death. It has been only 65 years since Mao opened the curtain on that great famine in which 96 million people starved. When will China finally escape this vicious cycle of politics in command mass starvation?